Okay, so we should be recording. I'm really excited tonight to have Bruce Talbot talk about the STAR and officer recruiting programs. We are going to do something else later on the other different accession programs, so that when you're talking at college fairs or talking to students, they can have some alternatives to the academy. But tonight we're lucky to have Bruce talking about the STAR and officer recruiting program. Please send me or Jim any requests on things that you would like to see in the future for training. And if you have any people in your unit or anybody that you're working with that wants this, we will be sending out a link to the recording. And Bruce, are you there?
All set.
Okay, so let's take it away. And for those of you, I think everybody's pretty much on mute, but if you're not, if you could mute while Bruce does his presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. All right.
The other thing I'd like to ask our 26 participants we've got on tonight is if you would also stop your video feed. And the reason why I'm asking that is not because I don't want to look at you. It's because it eats up bandwidth. And I'm fearful that if we have all the participants, everyone's got their video on, you're going to start seeing me stalling and the audio is going to stall. So if you could reach up in the top left corner, you may see it says stop video. If you could click on that, that would hopefully give us some more bandwidth. Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really, and then someone stopped me. Okay, I think the host has stopped my video feed.
Let me check on that. Let me try to pull up the people.
Yeah, I think you made a universal command.
I probably made a universal thing. Okay.
It's turning me off, which is fine. Nobody needs to see me.
No,
So,
I want to see you, so let me find you.
So tonight's topic is the search, talent, and refer from the Coast Guard Recruiting Command. And I'm going to tag on a second part to that, and that is officer recruiting for officer programs other than the Coast Guard Academy. Tonight's program, it's very important for you to understand that this program was written by me. It does not reflect the Coast Guard auxiliary policies and procedures. This presentation does not represent or reflect the official policy of the Coast Guard Recruiting Command. This is my personal information that I'm sharing with you. Policies and procedures change on a daily basis within the Coast Guard. So if there's any questions as to the correct auxiliary policy, please check with your flotilla commander or your auxiliary leadership. If you have any questions on Coast Guard policy, please check with the Coast Guard Recruiting Command for the most recent up-to-date information. My name is Bruce Talbot. I am an Academy Admissions Partner. I've been an Academy Admissions Partner for 13 years now. And about 5 years ago, I was approached to also do recruiting support on the enlisted side. Today, I do both of those jobs. I am very, very happy, and I think it's a great fit to be able to go to an event, go to a school and talk to students and have the ability to approach on both sides of the issue, both the academy side and the enlisted side. The presentation I'm presenting for you tonight is available as a PDF, and it has all of the notes, speaker notes. If you would like to take out your cell phone, all you have to do is activate your camera on your cell phone, and you can take a picture, and you've got all my contact information, and that QR code will zap you to my Dropbox site, which contains the handouts. So what is the STAR program? STAR stands for Scout, Talent, and Refer. This is the latest, greatest version of Everyone is a Recruiter. The big difference is that with the STAR program, the Coast Guard is now giving $1,000 cash incentive to anyone who refers a applicant to the Coast Guard Recruiting Command. When that applicant signs their contract and ships out, you receive $1,000 cash award. If you are an auxiliarist, you also receive a Commandant's Letter of Recognition ribbon. And this is available to everyone: active duty, reserve, auxiliarist, civilian employees. Everyone participates in this program with the exception of the recruiters. They have a separate bonus program. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, as I mentioned, I've been an Academy Admissions partner now for 13 years. Have you ever been at a college fair and you've got your table set up, you're all ready to go, and a student walks up to you and asks you, "Do you have culinary at the academy?" That's happened to me more than once. I'm sure it's probably happened to you too. And I try as best as I can to explain, no, this is a military academy and it's similar to West Point. But what causes confusion is the word academy. And I think also the way we are dressed causes confusion because they don't see a military uniform. So I do my best to explain that, no, this is a military academy and we're primarily an engineering school and we don't have culinary. And did I really serve the student with that explanation? Did I really serve the Coast Guard with that explanation? And what I hope to accomplish tonight is how we can best serve that student who doesn't realize that this is a military academy she's approaching, but she's got something that maybe the Coast Guard can use, and maybe the Coast Guard has something that can help her accomplish her goals and objectives.
Lo que te exige la Guardia Costera ahora.
Okay, as I asked before, we may have people who have signed on late. If you would please mute your microphone and stop your video.
Bruce, you are now the host of the meeting. You can mute people and you can turn off their video and you can turn yours back on again.
Okay, let me see how I do this because we have people talking. I'm back. So what do we do with that student that has approached us, and sometimes it's a family member, and asked if we have culinary at the academy? My recommendation is to engage that person rather than send them away. Engage them. And when I say engage, spend more time listening and asking than speaking. Find out what is in this person's heart, what's driving them, what's motivating, what is their desire, and is there a way that we can fulfill that within the Coast Guard? Is there something that we can do to help them along their pathway to personal success? I carry, when I do a college fair, and I'm in my Academy polo shirt, and we have the table set up as you saw earlier, I have a small handful of enlisted brochures that I always bring with. And if I have a student who engages me and they're interested in culinary, and obviously Coast Guard Academy is not going to be the best fit there, I want to be able to reach out and hand this student a piece of information that can help them along their path to success and possibly help fulfill a critical need that the Coast Guard has. So one of the questions becomes, well, hey, that's great, but where do I get the brochures from? How do we do that? Well, if again you take out your cell phone, scan this QR code, that will zap you to the Coast Guard Auxiliary National Warehouse in Granite City, Illinois. We have a special selection of materials set aside that any flotilla commander can order across the United States to help support the STAR program. So the brochures that you saw in the other slide are available there. They'll be shipped to you free of charge. We also have really nice 18 by 24 full color posters that you can use. We have some swag items, some promotional materials. It's a really great program. Everything that you need to help fulfill that student's desire to serve in the Coast Guard other than the academy is there. When you listen to the student and you begin to engage, and now you're ready to speak. One of the best examples, one of the best recommendations that I can give you is to sell the sizzle as opposed to selling the product. I went to the 3-week Coast Guard recruiters school at Trace End, Cape May, New Jersey. And this is one of their favorite lines that they always used to tell us. Sell the sizzle, don't sell the steak. We don't care that the steak is 10% off tonight. We don't care that the steak comes with an extra piece of pie or a dessert. Sell the sizzle. What do they mean by that? Well, if you've ever been to a Ruth Chris steakhouse, when the server brings that steak on a metal plate and that plate's at 2,000 degrees and it sizzles and smokes as it crosses the room, everybody stops talking. They all look at, oh, I'll have what they're having. That's what we mean by sell the sizzle. Well, how do you translate that sizzling steak concept into the Coast Guard? Well, if you have someone that's coming up to your academy table, they're asking about culinary. Instead of coming in and selling the Coast Guard and selling the amount of money they're going to be making or the free training that they're going to be making, selling the sizzle means selling the mission of the Coast Guard. What do we mean by that? Every day, all the other branches of the military are practicing as hard as they can to fulfill a mission that they hope never comes. Think about that. Every day, the Coast Guard doesn't just train. Every day, the Coast Guard is out there doing the mission. Saving lives, protecting the environment, stopping polluters, stopping overfishing, protecting our borders from drugs every day. That's what we mean by selling the sizzle. Wouldn't you want to be part of a team that saves lives? You know, you mentioned to me that you're interested in culinary. We have a wonderful opportunity. See, first I sell the sizzle. Now let's come back for some motivation. We have a wonderful opportunity right now in the Coast Guard. For a high school graduate, we will provide all of your training to be a culinary specialist. 13 weeks of specialized training in Petaluma, California, and all that training is free. In addition, right now, we have a $65,000 sign-on bonus for high school students who join the Coast Guard and commit to a 4-year program to be culinarians, to be chefs for the Coast Guard. We're providing the training, and you can take that $65,000, put it in the bank. And when you come out of the Coast Guard, you've got a down payment to open your own restaurant. You could buy your own food truck. The things that you could do with that $65,000 are amazing. Now, folks, I don't have time to go through each and every one of the enlistment bonuses that we have. There's a number of them. If you go into the notes section, I specifically spell out all of the different bonuses that we have, the different requirements. For example, it's $65,000 for an electronics technician. What do I need to qualify for that? You've got to get a pretty good math score on your ASVAB test. And the details are in the notes section, and I'll let you read that on your own. Might be great to take that with you so that you get that you can refer back to as a reference to it. And there's a number of incentives like that besides just the cash. If you're at a high school and you're talking to a student, you find out that they've done ROTC at their school. Well, we can give them a bump from E0 up to E3 on graduation. So they'll get a triple pay bump just because they have ROTC. Same thing applies for Civil Air Patrol or other organizations like the Boy Scouts. If they've made Eagle Scouts, Girl Scouts, they've made Gold Star. There's a number of incentives, and I've spelled them all out for you on that handout. While you're talking to the student and you're engaging them, keep this in the back of your mind. The majority of high school students today technically don't qualify for military service. Most recent research that came out, was just published a couple months ago, shows that on average, 80% of high school seniors are not fit for military service. What's keeping them out? Well, it's a combination of health and social issues. Obesity is the leading cause, medical issues, allergies, things like that. Now, when you're engaging a student and you'd like to refer them to the Coast Guard for a culinary program, rather than asking them personal questions, I don't recommend that. I never ask a student, and by the way, how much do you weigh? Don't ask them that. Oh, and are you taking any prescription drugs like Adderall or Ritalin? Never ask them that. These are personal questions we should never be asking. Instead, ask an open-ended question, such as, do you have any concerns about your ability to pass a military medical exam or a physical? Now, typically when you say that, you'll see their eyes go up and over. They pause and they think for a moment, and they'll come back to you and they'll go, well, I'm not sure. What do you mean by that? What do I have to do? Now we get into what I call AHEAD. We want to try and get ahead. What do we mean by that? It's a small little acronym to kind of help me remember on my feet when I'm talking to somebody at a college fair or a career day. What are the basics that we need to qualify? And this is an important page for our Academy Admissions partners, because to qualify for the enlisted side of the Coast Guard is very, very different from having to qualify for the Academy side. And then one of the big ones that most people would recognize is citizenship. You know, if you're going to apply to the Coast Guard Academy, you have to be a United States citizen. If you're going to apply to the enlisted side of the Coast Guard to become a culinarian, you don't need to be a citizen. You only need a green card. You have to be in the country legally. And this is an amazing point. Please make a special note of the following. If you're talking to a student and they're not a U.S. citizen, but they want to serve in the Coast Guard, they want to make a difference, they want to be part of a life-saving team, if they're in the country legally, if they have a green card and they enlist in the Coast Guard, they will be a United States citizen when they graduate from basic training in Cape May, New Jersey. Is that amazing? Coast Guard has a special program, Pathway to Citizenship. It eliminates the years worth of waiting, and they are able to take their citizenship test and qualify while they're at basic training in Cape May, so that when they graduate and they are officially in the Coast Guard, they're also a United States citizen. It is an amazing program very few people are aware of. On this page in the notes section, there are a number of other requirements. I will tell you that it's very important for you to never, ever say no to a student. Never make a promise. Oh, I know Captain Kiefer. I'll put a special word in for you. I can get that assignment. No, I can't. Nobody can. Never make a promise and never say no. Well, on your slide, Bruce, you say that the ASVAB score to get in the Coast Guard's a 36. And the student I'm talking to only has a 32. So I guess I should tell them no, they can't go. You see that little star? You see there's a little star right there next to that 36. Almost everything that I'm going to tell you tonight is subject to a waiver, including that ASVAB score. If this person has other qualities that we're looking for, we're basing this on the whole person concept, the same concept that the academy uses to make their selections, the whole person concept, not just one failure point. So if we have someone that has other qualities that we like, we can apply, and when I say we, I mean the recruiters can apply for a waiver and get them in, even though they technically don't have that 36. And that applies to many of the other requirements that we have. I will tell you that some of the ones that I can tell you my personal experience, I've been a recruiter, gone through recruiting school, and I do actively recruit for the Coast Guard. There's some things that I have never seen a waiver issued on. That's any type of arrest where there's a violence aspect to it. If they were involved in a shooting or a stabbing, there's a crime of violence they've been arrested for. I doubt very much whether we're going to get a waiver. But again, that's not my position as an auxiliarist to tell a student no. My position is to tell them what the realistic chances of them, but you should always talk to a recruiter and tell them what happened. I never say no. I always say, make sure you bring that up and tell that to the recruiter. When we ask that question, do you have any concerns about passing a medical exam or a military physical exam? The most common answer I get is, well, what do I have to do? Well, the fitness goals for the enlisted side are different than the fitness goals on the academy side. And they're different on the enlisted side than they are on the officer side, OCS, for example. So in the notes view, I've given you the breakdown, both enlisted and for the officer programs. The officer programs, the fitness standards are higher than on the enlisted side. Generally speaking, on the screen, these are the requirements for them to ship out. They must be able to do these physical requirements if they're going to form up in their company. If they are close, but they aren't making the standard, they will allow them to train physically at Cape May to meet that standard, but technically they should have this standard before they ship out. One of the number one questions that I get when I'm out representing the Coast Guard at a recruiting event is, do I have to swim? You know, I never learned how to swim. I never thought about the Coast Guard because I can't swim. And the answer is, you don't have to know how to swim. The Coast Guard will teach you how to swim. We'll teach you in basic training how to swim. The only requirement is they must be willing to learn. If you have a student who says, I'm scared to death of the water, I can't step in the water, the whole thing, I can't even put my head in the water. Coast Guard's probably not a good fit for you. You're going to have to be able to learn to swim. Now, on the officer side, for OCS and C-Spine, the officer programs we're going to talk about in a few minutes, they must be able to swim prior to them coming to OCS training at New London. So enlisted, willing to swim. On the officer side, they must be proficient at swimming. So you have a student, you've listened to them diligently, you've engaged them, you think it's a good fit. I think this person would be happy in the Coast Guard, and I think the Coast Guard would be happy with this person. Well, what's our next step? That's easy. Take your phone, scan this. You are going to file a STAR report. And if you scan this and click the button, it will zap you to a pre-formatted email. And it will ask you to fill out the person's name, their phone number, their zip code. Zip code is extremely important. Don't leave out the zip code. Very important, because that's how we're going to connect them with the recruiters, through that zip code. And write a short paragraph about this student. What are their goals? What are their desires? What are their dreams? What concerns do you have about this student to alert the recruiter? File that off, and you are now recorded. Your name is recorded with that student as they progress through the application process with the Coast Guard. We want you to maintain a relationship with that student. We want you to act as a mentor, answer questions, meet with the family, have a Zoom talk. I had a recent STAR report referral, and he was having some troubles. He wasn't quite sure what to do. I said, hey, we're going to have an event over at the baseball game. The stadium's doing a military appreciation night. Why don't you come on out? Lieutenant Thompson is going to be there. I'd like to introduce you to him. He came out. He was all excited. He brought his parents. He brought his brother with him. And Lieutenant Thomas talked to him for almost an hour. We gave him a Coast Guard backpack, and he was totally motivated. He just needed to talk to somebody that was actually doing the job, as opposed to an auxiliarist. That's my thinking. Really worked out well. We want you to maintain that mentor relationship. When they sign their contract and they ship, the day they ship, you then qualify for the $1,000 cash reward and your ribbon. Well, what happens if they go and they don't pass? Well, that's okay. When they ship, you qualify for the award. If they go to the academy and then they don't make it, they drop out. That doesn't change anything. It's the day that they ship. So that's an overview on the STAR program. I'd like to finish with a brief overview of officer programs that are available besides the Coast Guard Academy. And you can basically break this down into two main groups, OCS and direct commission. The CSPI, College Student Pre-Commissioning Initiative, which I volunteered to head up for a number of years on the auxiliary side, is considered part of the OCS program. Now, please make a special note here. If you have a student that you're talking to at a high school and it looks like they'd be a good candidate for CSPI, and you get them lined up and get them into the CSPI program, and after 30 hours at a minority servicing institution, they enlist and they get the scholarship and they're headed to OCS. None of the officer programs qualify for a STAR award. Everybody hear that? The STAR award, the $1,000, the ribbon only is issued for critical needs. And right now, those critical needs are enlisted, not for the officer programs. So what is the CSPI program? CSPI is a scholarship program. The scholarship is open to any U.S. student, must be a U.S. Citizen, who has at least 30 credit hours at a minority servicing institution as listed by the U.S. Department of Education. Now, remember when I told you about those waivers? It applies here too. If they're not listed by the U.S. Department of Education, never say no. We may be able to get a waiver for their particular school. Now, this program is open to all all men, all women, all races, all creeds, all religions. We do not discriminate against the person. We only discriminate against the school. It must be one of 920 minority serving institutions. The requirements for the scholarship are much lower than the requirements to go to the Coast Guard Academy. And you'll see some of the numbers there. I'm not going to read PowerPoint slides to you. The big benefit is instead of going away from home for 4 years, they can stay home in their home community and go to college, similar to an ROTC program. However, this is a full ride scholarship for the last 2 years. Pays all tuition, all fees. It pays them a salary of roughly $34,000 a year. They're getting an E3 pay every 2 weeks. And when they graduate college, they're guaranteed a seat in OCS. They will also be guaranteed a seat in flight school if they want to be a pilot, something that does not happen at the academy level. It's an amazing opportunity. And they only have a 3-year active duty payback for C-SPI. It's an amazing program. Right now, we're only looking at taking roughly 100 students nationwide into the C-SPI program, and that number varies. Last year, it was 107, but the typical goal is 100 a year. The other side is the direct commission program. There are 12 specialties that the Coast Guard will directly commission an officer after they've graduated. So similar to OCS, but the big difference is these are specialty graduates. So we're talking about folks who are engineers, doctors, lawyers, scientists. Prior military aviators are in this direct commission program. Maritime academies like Mass Maritime, New York SUNY, for example, is a maritime academy. As I said, there are 12 different programs. Every program is different. Some of them you come in as an O2, some you come in as a full O3. The ages are different. For an aviator, the maximum age is 36, but for a lawyer, you could be 41 years old. So how do you tell the difference? Well, here's another opportunity for you to take your cell phone and take a picture of that. This QR code will zap you to the Coast Guard Recruiting Command's application guide, which lists all 12 of those direct commission programs, gives you all the requirements, gives you all of the payback, all of the benefits for each one of those programs. It's really the reference that you need if you're going to be doing officer ascension recruiting. One of the big differences between OCS and direct commission is the person. Person going to OCS typically is going to be someone who has prior experience in the Coast Guard. Earl Burns, one of my branch chiefs down in Atlanta, who specializes in C-SPI, by the way, gave me the name Mustangs. He says, yeah, OCS, he says, they're all Mustangs. I said, Earl, help me out here. What's a Mustang? And he says, it's someone that's in the Coast Guard, enlisted, and they're advancing to the officer corps through OCS. We call them Mustangs. He says, in OCS, he says, the vast, vast majority are Coast Guard enlisted that are being advanced. He says, it's very rare in a OCS class where you have someone who's just off the street and they're going through OCS. In fact, thinking back on it, that was my experience too. I worked closely with Lieutenant Darnell Talbot in Michigan as a academy admissions officer. And he was OCS, and he told me that he had applied 3 times before they finally took him. He had his bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan. He was a Michigan football player, great officer. I really enjoyed working with him. I was quite surprised they took 3 times for him to be accepted into OCS. And now I understand, because OCS is primarily enlisted being advanced into the officer corps. The direct commission are primarily folks who are coming off the street. They are recent graduates from an engineering school. They are a third-year student, law school. They don't even need to graduate law school to get a direct commission for Coast Guard legal. They are a prior military pilot. They're specialists. Your typical OCS ensign is going to be going out into the fleet. Your typical direct commission is not going to be an ensign. They're going to be a JG or a full lieutenant, and they're not going out in the fleet. Those folks are going to be doing their specialty. They're going to be a JAG officer if they're a lawyer. They're going to be in the engineering office if they're an engineer. If they're a scientist, they're going to be doing something with a marine unit. They're not going to be out getting qualified to be a boarding officer or something like that. I promised I could do this in 30 minutes. My computer says 8:35. I'm not quite sure when we started, but I'm going to say I think I got that pretty close. Let me stop. You've got my email address down there. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. And Kim, if you want to entertain questions, I don't know how long you want to go, but
We can certainly entertain some questions. There's some questions in the chat. And can you do me a favor? I'm not sure I recorded it because I made you the host. Can you make me the host again? Are you able to do that? All right. So I'll go ahead and ask some of the questions. Someone asked, does the $1,000 bonus apply for recruiting potential officers and enlisted? And I think you answered that it's enlisted, correct?
correct. Enlisted
Okay.
only, the officers are not a critical need. We have far more people applying for C-SPY than there are applications, than there are billets available for the scholarship. Far more people applying to the academy, for example. You know, what is our acceptance rate? 17%, something like that. So there's no need for an incentive for any of the officer programs.
Someone asks about Sea Cadets.
Naval Sea Cadets, great place to do recruiting support. I have done a number of Naval Sea Cadets. There is an incentive. We can give them a bump to E2 if they've met, I think it's quartermaster is the term for Sea Cadets, if they've reached that level. Same with Civil Air Patrol. We'll give them a boost, a bump to E3 if they are General Billy Mitchell qualified in the Civil Air Patrol. Good
Okay.
question.
And then someone asks, you talked about arrests for felony type issues or violence type issues. And someone asks arrest or conviction. What if they're arrested, but they're not convicted?
If they are arrested, their fingerprints are with the FBI, and the FBI will find that arrest. And if they were not convicted, they were not charged. You know, I feel like doing Guys and Dolls. Remember the line from Harry the Horse? I've been arrested 33 times, but no convictions.
And I would assume that if it was an erroneous kind of thing, that they could probably get a waiver for that. I mean, they'll take
Waiver.
that. Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Someone asked, will we get a copy of the presentation? And I think that Bruce said that his notes are going to be available. And hopefully we did record this. I actually recorded it on my phone as well, so that if we didn't get the actual official recording, so that will be available. All right.
If they would like to copy this down, if they came late, because I brought this up on the I'll go back 17 of these. I had a QR code where you can go to my Dropbox. Here, if you take your cell phone and scan that QR code, it'll zap you right to my Dropbox site, and you can download the handouts, the note pages. I did send the note pages PDF to Branch Chief Wolf. I was hoping he would send that out. I don't know if he did or not.
I will make sure he sends that out.
He's got a copy, and you've got it now too. So anybody can access that Dropbox site.
Okay, and we already asked, someone asked about the AUP program. I think it's
The
I'm
auxiliary
assuming that they're talking
university-
about the AUP.
The Auxiliary University Program, AUP, is part of OCS. So they have a wonderful opportunity in that what I've been told is 70% of AUP graduates of the Auxiliary University Program, those folks are accepted into OCS. So it's an amazing program. And we now have an opportunity where you don't have to physically go to an AUP school. There's an opportunity where you could do the AUP program online at your college. So you don't have to transfer to a different state.
Okay, and then we already asked about Sea Cadets and higher rank when enlisting. You answered that. Okay, any other questions at all for Bruce before we wind this down?
We would love to have you if you are an Academy admissions partner and like I have been for the past 13 years, and you would like to officially also, in addition to your Academy recruit for the enlisted side, we'd love to have you. It requires a selection. And just like on the Academy side, where you have to be approved by the Academy admissions office to be an admissions partner, to do enlisted recruiting, it's not up to me as the division chief. You have to be approved by Coast Guard Recruiting Command. So we take your application, your photographs, your interview. It's a lengthier selection process. There's a training program, and then you are presented to Recruiting Command, and they can accept or reject you. So it's a gold side program as opposed to something that the auxiliary controls. Very similar to the Academy side in that we have people who apply to be Academy admissions partners, and the Academy says, we don't really need anybody in that geographic area, and they say no. It's really up to the Recruiting Command as to whether they want to approve auxiliarists as recruiters. But the training opportunities are amazing. I mean, for me to be able to go to Cape May and to sit with active duty recruiters and go through the exact same training, the exact same exams and homework assignments that they did, that training really paid off for me. It's been very rewarding.
Hey, Bruce, this is Bev Hannibal.
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier about if you were a part of the Boy Scouts or if you were Sea Scouts or whatever, you join, there's an opportunity for you to get a higher ranking. Now, at one point, it was told to us that if they joined the auxiliary, it would be the same thing. They would also be a higher one.
Correct. If you have a student who 17 joins the Coast Guard Auxiliary, they have to be boat crew rated. They have to have their boat crew sign-offs. So they have to do their quals. They can't just join the auxiliary and say, okay, well, I'm in the auxiliary, give me an E3. If they are boat crew qualified, we will give them an E2 boost upon graduation. So a double pay boost.
All right, well, Bruce, thank you. That was terrific. And again, we'll try to send out the link to everyone. And I appreciate everyone attending. This was our best attended training so far. And if you have any ideas, please send Jim, Wolf, or myself topics that you would like to hear. And again, thank you, Bruce.
I just got one question. This is David.
Mm-hmm.
How are we gonna annotate this on the Ox data tonight? 99 Alpha or 99 Delta?
This
Because you did say training.
Yeah, this is going to be under training.
So 99 Delta then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you all for attending. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.